The quantity demanded in units of 100. So if X is 5, it doesn't mean 5 are being sold, it means 500. And here we're looking at Mikado miniature cameras per week is related by this equation here. So it says demanded and then gives us this equation. Here's our demand. And that is related to the quantity the supplier is willing to make available in the market. So here is our supply equation. And we're given our equilibrium point where that supply and demand intersect. Our X bar comma P bar is 10, 60. And we're going to find both the consumer and producer surplus. I'll start with the consumer. We have the integral from 0 to X bar, always the X value, so 10, of the demand equation. So negative 0.2 X squared plus 80. We're going to integrate with that with respect to X. And then we're going to remember that the last part of this formula is subtracting X bar times P bar, or P bar times X bar. So we would do 10 times 60. I'm going to work with that last. I'm going to integrate first. I have negative 0.2 as my constant multiple, so I'm going to keep it. 2 plus 1 is 3, so we're going to divide by 3 and raise x to 3. Antiderivative of a constant is that constant times x, normally plus c, but here we have an evaluation bar from 0 to 10. And then we have minus 10 times 60 is 600, which I will work with last. First thing I'm going to do is plug into my integral. I'm just going to do it piece by piece. So to start with, I'm going to do that negative 0.2 over 3 in parentheses times 10 cubed, which is going to give me a decimal that keeps going. I want to remember not to round anything until the very end. So I'm going to just write it as negative 200 over 3 plus 8 times 10 is 800. And then we are going to plug in 0 to both of these, which is just going to give me 0 when I do negative 0.2 over 3 times 0 cubed plus 80 times 0 is 0. Nice lower bound to plug in because we just get 0. And at the very end, I'm going to subtract 600. So negative 200 over 3 plus 800 gives me 2200 over 3. And then I'm going to subtract 600 from that as my last thing to do, and I'm getting 133.3 repeating, or as a fraction, we could just leave it as 400 over 3. Either way, I'm not going to round it until the final answer, which is going to be multiplying by 100 in this case. These are units of 100. That way we can see if we round to the nearest dollar, it is going to be really 133.3 repeating times 100 gives us about $13,333. So we could stop there if they're told to round in the nearest dollar, or if we're not told where to round to, we could go to the nearest penny. It's money, so we wouldn't go beyond that. So that's the consumer surplus. They're selling 100 cameras, which 10 times 100 really means they're selling 1,000 cameras. And in those 1,000 cameras, those 1,000 customers feel like they're cumulatively saving $13,333. So they feel like they're getting a really good deal. Now let's see how the producer is feeling. How much are they getting above the minimum amount that they would have accepted? So feel free to pause this, calculate this on your own. It is just a basic integral. You just have to set it up yourself. So it's starting with P bar times X bar in any order, 60 times 10 or 10 times 60, minus the integral from 0 to 10, always the X value of the supply equation, which is 0.1 X squared plus X plus 40, and we have to put a dx on there. So the producer surplus is going to be 600 minus doing this integral. So I'm going to keep the 0.1, divide it by 2 plus 1 is 3, x to the 3, plus I'd have 1 over 2, x to the 2. The antiderivative of x is 1/2 x squared, and the antiderivative of 40 is 40x, and we would evaluate from 0 to 10. So I would plug in each of these pieces. So I would do 600 minus, I would plug in 10 individually to all three terms. I would not round. I would leave it as a fraction if it's a decimal that doesn't terminate. And so the first piece, 0.1 times 10 cubed over 3 would be 100 over 3. You'd have 1/2 or 0.5 of 100, which is, or 10 squared, which is 100, which would give you 50. And then 40 times 10 would give you 400. Plugging into all three terms with the upper bound minus the fundamental theorem says you also have to plug in the lower bound to all three terms. But for this, plugging in 0 is kind of nice because you just get 0 out when you plug into each term. Any other lower bound would be more complicated. So it's nice that that's part of the formula. You're starting from 0 over. So you end up with 600 minus, this would be 483.3 repeating. Again, I'm not going to round anything to my final answer, so I'm going to make that a fraction. It'd be 1450 over 3. And so I'm not going to round until I get to my final answer. So this would give me 350 over 3, which is really 116.6 repeating. But we're not going to round until we multiply it by the units here. And this, it's units of 100. So whichever answer you want to take and multiply by 100, you're going to see that the producers end up getting $11,666.67 above the minimum amount that they would have accepted. So the consumers are feeling good. They all feel like they saved a decent amount of money, but then on the producer side, they're still making out just fine. They're making above the minimum amount that they would have accepted by $11,000, almost $700.